Hi everyone, welcome back for another episode of Atoms for the Love of Movie Picks. This time around, I'm not focusing on one specific movie. I'm going to do a group video. So just kind of briefly summarizing some of these films. I won't go too long into it, but basically the category for this episode is disaster films. And in one case, a disaster TV series, because it's not really a film on it per se, it's just a series that covers it, but it's such a big disaster, I felt it needed to be included in this group. So I'm going to kick it off with that. TV miniseries Chernobyl from HBO. So you all know the Chernobyl nuclear. Actually, before I get too much into this whole thing, I forgot to mention some of these are based off of real life disasters, and some of them are just Hollywood fiction, obviously. So there's a mixture of both. So this one, as you know, in April 1986 in Pripyat, Ukraine, which was controlled by the Soviet Union at that time, the Chernobyl nuclear power plant experienced a nuclear disaster, the worst in the history of mankind. Released huge amounts of radiation. Now, thankfully, they were able to contain it to a localized area. It didn't spread over the globe, but still, it was a huge disaster. This is, if you've never seen this miniseries, do yourself a favor, folks. If you're not really familiar with the Chernobyl story, like other than the basics of it, to really understand how this disaster happened and everything behind it and how horrific it really was, check out the Chernobyl miniseries. You will not be disappointed. It's a great watch for sure. Next up on the list we have, I believe it's from 1997, Armageddon, starring Bruce Willis, Ben Affleck, Liv Tyler, Will Patton, Peter Stormare, Keith David, Billy Bob Thornton, and I believe Michael Clark Duncan is this, as well as Owen Wilson. And Steve Buscemi, I think, is in this as well, if memory serves me right. This one here is a fictitious story about an asteroid that's due to crash into Earth. It's what they call a global killer, wipe out all life as you know it. And basically it's a very unique story. A team of oil drillers are tasked with going up with a crew of astronauts, drilling a hole in the asteroid to set nukes in and blow the rock apart. It's stellar cast, grade A quality movie, blockbuster at this time, and just a really great film if you've never seen it. Next up on this list is one that I've done a movie on, so I won't get too much into it, but it has to be included because of how good it is. Into the Storm, a story about twisters hitting a small North American town, or American town, sorry. Really great special effects, and as I've said, I've done a video on it, so I won't get too much into it. Next up is a movie from the 1970s, Earthquake. I kind of touched on this one, I think, in my top 40. It's a great disaster film because considering the era it was made, there was pretty much no digital special effects. It was all either actual special effects or miniatures. So it was really well done for the time, and great cast, of actors from that era. So great movie if you've never seen Earthquake. Next up on the list is Deepwater Horizon. This is based off the 2010 tragedy when the oil rig of the same name basically, caught fire, and a lot of people were killed, but it's amazing how many actually survived. One of the worst environmental disasters in history due to all the oil that was released, or natural gas, whatever you want to call it. Great cast. You got Mark Wahlberg, Kurt Russell, John Malkovich, Gina Rodriguez, and Kate Hudson. Just really well done. Great film. Hard to believe it's based on a true story, but it is. The Day After Tomorrow is it's from the early 2000s. I think it was 2001. No, sorry, it was actually 2004. This is one of those rare movies. It's takes the disasters and bases them off some fact, but it's nothing that's actually happened. It was kind of like a movie that was saying, look, this is what can happen if you continue with the global warming and the melting of the polar ice caps, and basically it's based that all these disasters are happening because of the disruption of the North American current. Half the world basically freezes, you got tornadoes in LA, and all kinds of weird weather happening in places that it shouldn't happen. Another great, well put together storyline, great cast. You've got Jake Gyllenhaal, Dennis Quaid, Emmy Rossum, think that's the extent of the well-known actor in this one. So yeah, great movie if you've never seen The Day After Tomorrow. Next up, so these are two personal favorites of mine. These are actually happen to be on a double feature disc, so I'm showing both of them. Both of them from the 1990s. I think one is from 1996 and the other one is from 1997. So Dante's Peak and Daylight. So I'll start with Daylight because I believe that's the one that came out first. Now I'm trying to remember if I think this was the actual events in the movie are fictitious, but they're based off some fact because I believe a few years prior there was an actual tunnel explosion or collapse similar to this that they based it off of. You know, it's starring Sylvester Stallone. Just trying to see who else is in this. Viggo Mortensen, J.O. Saunders, and I believe Sylvester Stallone's actual son is in this as well. But basically, it's a tunnel that links New York and New Jersey. Chemicals are being illegally carried through the tunnel. A guy running from the law ends up crashing a car into the back of him, creating a huge explosion, collapsing both ends of the tunnel, trapping people inside. Just a simple storyline, but very well done. Great special effects, great cast. Especially with Sylvester Stallone. And just the score too, not necessarily songs, but like the music they put to the scenes makes it really get your heart pumping and get you into the movie. So great if you've never seen that. Dante's Peak is a volcano movie starring Pierce Brosnan and Linda Hamilton. And I think that's the extent of the well-known actors in this one. And basically it's about it's almost like a modern-day Pompeii movie. Where they've got this town in America that's nestled up right to the base of a volcano. It's supposed to be extinct, but it's actually dormant, and it wakes up, and yeah, it's just great storyline, great acting, and an interesting take. Doing like a modern day Pompeii thing, which is kind of cool. Speaking of which, by the way, I forgot to grab that. Pompeii is another one I should have included in this list that I forgot to grab, but I tried to leave out some of the ones that are, kind of iffy in the category, like sensitive subject or just something that's kind of been played out. But yeah, Pompeii is another one I should have done. But yeah, Dante's Peak, Daylight, very good movies. The next one up is called The Core. It's got Aaron Eckhart, Hilary Swank, Delroy Lindo. Very interesting concept. The electromagnetic field around the Earth's core is deteriorating and causing disasters around the globe. Now, from what I understand, this could be a real thing that could happen. I mean, it would take some extraordinary circumstances. I think you find out in this movie it's actually caused by man-made interference. And basically, they're sent into the planet's, like they call it the core because they're sent into the planet's core or just outside the core to basically, jumpstart the planet and fix all this before the planet collapses, basically, or falls apart, whatever you want to say. But yeah, unique storyline, great movie. Next up is The 33. Now this is based off of, I think this is also in 2010. Yeah, 2010. In the Chilean mining disaster where 33 miners in a Chilean mine are trapped when they call it the heart of the mine collapses. This big giant, like basically underground mountain collapses and traps them inside this mine, like thousands of feet below ground. And against all odds, they band together as brothers and survive. Very inspirational and emotional story. Both when it was happening and the way they displayed in the movie, you really feel that brotherhood. And just a great movie. The only major actor in this one you might recognize is Antonio Banderas. Oh yeah, James Brolin is in this as well. So yeah, great movie if you've never seen this. Next up on the list is 2012. I'm just trying to see when this actually came out. Yeah, so I think it was like 2010 it came out. So it came out before 2012, which kind of made it all the more scarier. So 2012 is somewhat based off fact. So at the time, there was well-known ancient Mayan prediction that the world would end in 2012. Now, thank God it didn't happen, but basically this movie was trying to, show what that would look like. Global disasters on an epic scale. Disaster scenes are just on point and unlike anything you've ever seen in any other movie. Just some of the stuff that they show in here is insane. Really keeps you into the movie though, and some good acting in this. You've got John Cusack, Amanda Peet, Oliver Platt, Thandie Newton, and Danny Glover. So just a really great movie. The next one up on this list is probably one that very few of you have ever heard of. It's called Night of the Twisters, starring John Schneider and Devon Sawa. Basically, this was a made-for-TV movie in the 90s that is, about a sleepy town called Blainsworth, Nebraska, where a bunch of tornadoes ravaged the town overnight. Fictitious story, obviously. It's a very great movie. I actually had this copy copied for me. I won't say who did it, so that I could be able to have this because I couldn't find it anywhere to buy and or stream. But yeah, it's if you manage to find it, just maybe online, maybe it's on YouTube. I've never really looked. Do yourself a favor and check out Night of the Twisters, because where something like Twister was like on a big scale, big budget, huge actors, very well known. Night of the Twisters just kind of fell into the radar, I think, but still, it's got a good storyline, and special effects are pretty good considering it's not that big budget of a movie. Next up on the list is The Perfect Storm, starring George Clooney and Mark Wahlberg. You've also got Diane Lane, William Fichtner, Karen Allen, and John C. Reilly. So basically, The Perfect Storm is about literally the perfect storm in October of 1991, when 3 storm fronts combined to create the greatest storm in recorded history. And these sword fishermen on the sword boat called the Andrea Gale were caught out in the storm, and unfortunately none of them survived. And to this day, as far as I know, they've never found the boat. But yeah, just literally the craziest storm in recorded history. Next up so the next 4 kind of all go together. So I'm going to start in order. So they're all basically the Poseidon Adventure. So you got the original Poseidon Adventure from, I think it was 1972. Yeah, 1972, followed by Beyond the Poseidon Adventure, which came out a year or two after. Then they had a TV miniseries called The Poseidon Adventure. And finally a remake just called The Poseidon, which I believe was 2007. The miniseries, I believe, was in the 90s. Actually, 2006, excuse me, was The Poseidon. Yeah, and I think it was the 90s for the actual TV series. So, basically, the premise for most of them is you got a ship out on the water, a cruise ship, gets struck by a rogue wave on New Year's Eve, capsizes. I don't know if anything like this has ever happened. All this is fictitious, by the way. I don't know if anything like this has even remotely come close to happening, but flips over. Because it flipped over with all the air trapped inside it, it's not sinking right away, and the people basically gotta get out through the bottom of the ship. The ship's all upside down, and they gotta try and escape. The original one had Gene Hackman, Red Buttons, Shelley Winters, and Roddy McDowell. So great cast, great storyline. I believe it also had Liam Neeson as Leslie Nielsen as the captain of the ship at the time. So yeah, just a really good movie. Beyond the Poseidon Adventure was more about like the same. They're the only ones that are the actual sequels. Basically, a salvage crew tries to go back into Poseidon as it's sinking to recover valuable artifacts and make some money. That one, surprisingly, for a sequel, it had Michael Caine in it, Sally Field, Peter Boyle, and Shirley Jones, as well as Slim Pickens. In the miniseries, it's just kind of like a reiteration of the original, but just a little bit more in depth to it, a little more get into the character stories and a little bit more of the ship. Now, the Poseidon basically is just about the you've got the same storyline, but it's with a modern cruise ship, and just a bit more of a modern take on it, and obviously modern cast. You've got Kurt Russell, Josh Lucas, Richard Dreyfuss, Emmy Rossum, Jacinda Barrett, and I think that's the extent of the well-known actors. And then, of course, the same idea, ship flips over at midnight after being hit by a rogue wave. The next one up I've done a video on as well, but we're going to touch on it again. The Quake. For a foreign film, this one is really well done. Again, it's a sequel to The Wave. Stars the same cast. You know, talking about a major earthquake hitting this the Norwegian city of Oslo. So I won't get too much into it, but you know. And then, yeah, I guess I'll talk about next up is The Wave. Another great foreign film, Norwegian. And stuff like this has happened. Like both The Quake and The Wave are their own stories. Are fictitious, but based off of some fact, obviously earthquakes. And in The Wave, there's been instances like that where a rock falls into like a quarry or fjord and creates a big tidal wave, destroying the town downstream. Next up, you've got San Andreas, starring Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Carla, I don't know how to say this last name, Alexander Daddario, Eon Grufford, and Paul Giamatti. Basically, you know, fictitious story, but it's based off some fact as to, because there's always been a theory that at some point there's going to be a major earthquake along the San Andreas Fault. It'd be like anything that's happened before in recorded history. Excuse me. And what that would be like. It's pretty intense. Next up is another foreign film, The Tower. This one is a Korean film. Very similar. The best way I can describe it, it's like a cross between Die Hard and The Towering Inferno, which is going to be one of the next ones I get into. You know, massive building, man-made or man-created fire, and it even says right on there, a cross between Die Hard and The Towering Inferno in the case. And just really great for a foreign film. Great storyline, great special effects. Highly recommend checking it out. Then, of course, you got The Towering Inferno from the 1970s. I think it was 1974 this came out. Just, you know, again, like The Quake, for the time that it was, the special effects in this are amazing. You got Steve McQueen, Paul Newman, William Holden, Faye Dunaway, Irwin Allen, which I think is the same director as the Poseidon does this. So just a really great movie. Then you've got another foreign film, a Korean one again, called The Tunnel. Again, a fictitious one. The Towering Inferno, The Tower, they're both fictitious. The Tunnel is fictitious. You know, basically about a guy who's trapped inside a tunnel in Korea. You know, with basically only a cell phone and a radio as his communication, like his car radio to the outside world. Basically trapped alone, and it's just about him being stuck in there and waiting for rescue. So great foreign film for sure. Twister is the next one. This is from 1995. Just, you know, a great storyline, starring the late Bill Paxton. You got Helen Hunt, and I'm trying to think of the other one. The late Philip Seymour Hoffman is also in this. Just basically, you know, about storm chasers, you know, chasing after tornadoes from a scientific point of view. So it's kind of interesting that way. Special effects are amazing. Just a great film. And the last one in this pile is Volcano. Again, a fictitious story, but an interesting story for sure. This one's from the 90s as well. 97 actually, starring Tommy Lee Jones and Haish, Don Cheadle, Keith David. Basically, it's the premise as to what would happen if there was a volcano in downtown Los Angeles. So yeah, again, a very interesting concept for a movie, and just, yeah, great story overall. So there you are, folks. I hope you enjoyed that. That is the end of the disaster film category, and yeah, sorry this one was a bit longer, but there's a lot of movies to cover in this one, but I haven't done a long video like this in a while. So like I said, I hope you enjoyed it, and take care, folks, and we'll see you next time. All right.